I told you that Indiana has a pie so tied to hard times that people named it after desperation, and then made it the official state pie? That the most beloved sandwich in the state is defined not by what's in it, but by how far the meat extends past the bun. And that the correct answer is 6 inches on every side. That there is a fruit growing wild in the hills of southern Indiana that is completely inedible until the first frost hits. And that 50,000 people travel every fall just to taste what happens after. Indiana, the crossroads of America. A state that doesn't announce itself. A state that made a pie from nothing, a sandwich from too much pork, and a dessert from a fruit that punishes you for trying it too early. 10 foods. One state that does everything on its own terms. Stay until food number 10. It's the one that most people alive today will never taste in their lifetime. Welcome to NomNom Cities. Let's decode this. Sugar cream pie. We start with a pie that has no eggs, no fruit, no filling that requires a trip to the market or a good harvest. Just sugar, heavy cream, butter, flour, vanilla, and nutmeg. Ingredients that every Indiana farmhouse had on every shelf in every season. The earliest known recorded recipe dates to 1816, the same year Indiana became a state. But the pie predates the recipe. Families were making it before anyone wrote it down, which is how most Hoosier food works. Sugar cream pie is believed to have originated with Quaker settlers who came from North Carolina in the early 1800s and settled in east-central Indiana, around Newcastle, Portland, Richmond, and Winchester. The Quakers were resourceful people who believed in simplicity and waste not. A true sugar cream pie requires nothing seasonal, nothing perishable, nothing that might not be available. Before it became Indiana's pride, it was known by a different name: desperation pie. Because you could make it when fresh fruit wasn't available, when the pantry was thin, when the harvest had been hard. The name and the recipe both made a comeback during the Great Depression. When the economy collapsed, Indiana went back to the pie it had always known how to make from almost nothing. Today, Indiana has a sugar cream pie trail, a map of restaurants across the state that still serve the traditional version. The trail exists because the pie does not travel well. You cannot find Indiana sugar cream pie in Chicago or Cincinnati. It is the pie that Indiana kept for itself. A pie born from desperation became the official state pie. That is the kind of reversal that only food can pull off. Indiana breaded pork tenderloin. There is a sandwich served across Indiana that tourists encounter with disbelief, and locals eat without thinking about it at all. The Indiana breaded pork tenderloin is not a small sandwich. It is a statement. A pork loin cutlet pounded flat with a meat mallet until it reaches a diameter of 10 to 12 inches. Dredged in flour, dipped in egg, coated in breadcrumbs or crushed saltine crackers, and deep fried until it shatters when you bite it. Then it is placed on a standard hamburger bun. The bun is 4 inches across. The tenderloin extends several inches on every side. The ratio is the point. The tenderloin is not meant to fit the bun. It is meant to dominate the bun serving as a handle and a flavor note, not as a structural container. Nick's Kitchen in Huntington, Indiana, open since 1908, is generally credited with creating the restaurant version. Nick Freienstein, a German immigrant, began serving pounded pork cutlets in the style of German schnitzel, adapting the technique to American pork loin and American appetites. More meat, bigger portion, cracker crumb coating. Served on a bun rather than a plate. The Indiana Pork Producers Association has run a Best Breaded Pork Tenderloin competition since 2003. In 1 year alone, they received 341 nominations. Brightbox Country Dining in Balltown, population 68, open since 1852, won in 2012. It is also a James Beard America's Classics winner. In Indiana, the best tenderloin often comes from the smallest town. There are Facebook groups with over 100,000 members dedicated to finding the best version. People drive 3 hours for a tenderloin they read about online. Indiana did not invent the pounded pork cutlet. Indiana made finding the best one a competitive sport. That is a different and larger kind of invention. Maytag Blue Cheese. The appliance company and the cheese share the same name because they share the same family. And that fact is the most Indiana thing in this entire video. It is 1941. Frederick Elmer Maytag II, grandson of the man who built the washing machine empire, walks into a collaboration with two Iowa State University microbiologists. Their goal? Create an American blue cheese from cow's milk, modeled on French Roquefort, which had traditionally been made from sheep's milk. On October 11, 1941, the first wheels of Maytag blue cheese went into aging caves outside Newton, Iowa. The cheese is made by hand, aged 6 months minimum. Dense, crumbly, slightly pungent, with a lemony finish that separates it from every other American blue. Maytag Dairy Farms has operated for over 80 years without a single advertising campaign, without a sales staff. The cheese sells itself. It has won Best Hard Blue Cheese at the World Cheese Awards. It has been served at the White House. And here is the detail that tells you everything about how good this cheese is. John Edwards, during his 2008 presidential campaign, accidentally left a wheel of Maytag Blue on his campaign plane. His staff noticed. The dairy immediately shipped another wheel overnight to wherever the campaign had traveled, because the candidate had specifically requested it. A presidential campaign experienced a minor emergency over a cheese from a small Iowa farm. A washing machine family created it. Almost nobody outside the Midwest knows it exists. Honestly, that might be exactly how Iowa likes it. Orville Redenbacher's popcorn. Indiana is the popcorn capital of America. The state produces approximately 25% of the entire national supply. The flat, fertile soil, the specific humidity, the growing conditions of the Indiana Corn Belt produce kernels with a hull thin enough to pop completely and a moisture content that creates maximum expansion. Orville Redenbacher was born in Brazil, Indiana in 1907. He studied agriculture at Purdue University and spent decades in the agricultural industry before focusing entirely on popcorn hybridization. His goal was specific: develop a popcorn that popped bigger, lighter, and left fewer unpopped kernels at the bottom of the bowl. He and his partner Charlie Bowman developed over 30,000 hybrid varieties over more than a decade before they found the one they were looking for. Their premium popcorn was initially sold locally under the name Redbow, combining their surnames. In 1970, a Chicago marketing firm told them the product was excellent but needed a more memorable name. Orville Redenbacher, the firm said, was one of the most memorable names in America. Put it on the bag. Orville Redenbacher's popcorn launched nationally in 1970. It sold at a premium, more expensive than competing brands, because Redenbacher insisted the quality justified the price and refused to discount it. He was right. The brand became the best-selling popcorn in America. Redenbacher appeared in his own commercials wearing his trademark bow tie and round glasses until his death in 1995. 30,000 hybrids. One name. One bag. Indiana grew a quarter of the country's popcorn from the same flat fields that had always been there. A monocolony's food tradition. In 1855, a group of German religious communalists, members of the Community of True Inspiration, settled 7 villages in east-central Iowa that became known as the Amana colonies. They had left Germany seeking religious freedom and brought with them something that most immigrant communities eventually lose: their recipes unchanged. For nearly a century, the colonies operated as a communal economy. Everyone worked. Everyone ate together in communal kitchens. The food was German. Sauerkraut made in wooden barrels, smoked meats, rye bread baked in communal ovens, schnitzel, bratwurst, strudel, recipes that had crossed the Atlantic in the 1840s. In 1932, the colonies reorganized as a for-profit company. The communal kitchens closed. Families cooked for themselves for the first time in generations. But the recipes survived. Passed from mother to daughter, kept in handwritten notebooks, served in the colony restaurants that opened to feed the tourists who came to see what communal life looked like. The Amana colonies are now a tourist destination. The restaurants still serve schnitzel and bratwurst. The bakeries still make rye bread from the same formula, the same families, the same recipes. 170 years. Unchanged. And the Amana brand, famous today for refrigerators and appliances, originated here, before being spun off into a separate company. Indiana gave America both the Maytag washing machine and the Amana refrigerator from the same century of German immigrant ingenuity. The food outlasted both. Indiana State Fair fried food. Every August, the Indiana State Fair opens in Indianapolis for 17 days. It is the largest event in Indiana, drawing over 1 million visitors per year. And every year, the food vendors compete to introduce the most extravagant, most excessive, most specifically fair food in the state. The corn dog has been served at the Indiana State Fair since at least the 1940s. The elephant ear, a flat-fried dough the size of a dinner plate, dusted with powdered sugar or cinnamon, is the standard fair pastry. The pork tenderloin naturally appears at multiple stands. But the most distinctive Indiana State Fair institution is the Dairy Bar, operated by Indiana dairy farmers. It serves ice cream and dairy products from a facility that processes milk on-site at the fairgrounds. The only dairy operation of its kind at any American state fair. The Indiana State Fair is where the state's food culture goes public once a year. The same land that produces the sweet corn sold from pickup trucks in July. The same hog farms that supply the tenderloins. The same dairy operations that run year-round in the background. The fair is Indiana food with the volume turned up. Everything bigger, everything fried, everything on a stick. And in the middle of it, a dairy bar processing real milk into real ice cream on the fairgrounds, because Indiana does not see the point of doing things the easy way when the right way is available. Shapiro's Delicatessen. In 1905, Louis Shapiro opened a delicatessen on South Meridian Street in Indianapolis. His family had come from Eastern Europe. They brought with them the food of the Jewish deli tradition. Corned beef, pastrami, brisket, matzo ball soup, rye bread baked in-house. And the commitment to making it correctly, which means making it from scratch, in quantity, every day. Shapiro's has been on the same block, in the same family, for 120 years. It is the oldest continuously operating delicatessen in Indiana, and one of the oldest in the Midwest. The cafeteria-style service, you carry a tray, you point at what you want, you find a table, has not changed. The menu has not substantially changed. The corned beef is still made in-house. The rye bread is still baked daily. Indianapolis is not a city historically associated with Jewish deli culture the way New York or Chicago or Los Angeles is. Shapiro's exists in Indianapolis because Louis Shapiro came to Indianapolis and opened a deli, and the city decided it was glad he did. 120 years on the same block, the same family, the same corned beef. Some restaurants survive by reinventing themselves. Shapiro's survived by refusing to. Indiana sweet corn. This one is not an invention. It is a discovery that requires specific geography, specific timing, and a willingness to eat standing up in a field if necessary. Indiana grows more corn than almost any other state in America. Most of it is commodity corn. Feed corn, ethanol corn, the corn that fills silos and powers supply chains. That is not the corn we're talking about. Indiana's sweet corn peaks for approximately 3 weeks in late July and August. It is picked that morning and eaten that afternoon. The sweetness degrades within hours of harvest. This is not a metaphor. This is chemistry. The sugars convert to starch quickly. The corn you eat tomorrow is scientifically a different food from the corn you eat 20 minutes from the field. Hoosiers who have moved away describe this corn the way other people describe their grandmother's cooking, as something that cannot be replicated, as proof that place is part of flavor. They are not being sentimental. They are being accurate. There is no Indiana sweet corn brand, no marketing campaign. It is available at roadside stands, at tailgates, at county fairs, from the back of pickup trucks parked on gravel roads. It is the most honest food in this video. No processing, no franchise, no history of invention. Just a vegetable, a specific place, and a window of 3 weeks a year when it is perfect. Indiana supper club culture. This one is less a dish and more a way of eating that exists almost nowhere else in America. The Indiana Supper Club is a specific institution. A restaurant, usually family-owned, usually in a building that has been a restaurant since at least the 1950s. A relish tray comes first. Celery, carrots, olives, pickles, sometimes a small cheese spread. The menu has not changed significantly since it was printed. The salad bar has been there since before the current staff was born. The prime rib is the same cut from the same supplier as it has been for 40 years. The supper club is not fine dining. It is not casual dining. It is something specifically Midwestern. A place where the meal is an event, where you go with your family on a Friday night, where the waitress has worked there for 23 years and knows what your parents used to order. Indiana supper clubs serve the pork tenderloin. They serve pie from local bakeries. Some still have loose meat sandwiches on the menu as an appetizer. Most of these places will never be reviewed in a national publication. Their chefs will never appear on a television show. They will continue serving the same food to the same families for as long as the families keep coming back. That is not a failure of ambition. That is the point. Persimmon pudding. Stay until the end. This is the one that most people alive today will never taste in their lifetime. In the hills and hollows of Lawrence, Orange, and Martin counties in southern Indiana, in the river valleys where the American persimmon tree grows wild, there is a fall food tradition that most of the country has never encountered. The American persimmon is not the large, sweet orange variety sold in Asian grocery stores. It is a small, wild, dark orange fruit. And it has a rule. Before the first frost, the persimmon is intensely astringent. Bite into one too early, and it will pucker your mouth so severely you will not try again. The tannins are that aggressive. After the first frost, something changes. The astringency disappears. The fruit becomes sweet and complex, tasting of dates, of apricot, of something specific to the Indiana woods in October that nothing cultivated can replicate. The frost is not a metaphor. The frost is the recipe. Persimmon pudding is made from wild persimmon pulp pressed through a sieve, combined with eggs, sugar, butter, buttermilk, and flour, and baked until the top forms a dark crust and the interior remains dense and moist. It is not a British-style pudding. It is closer to a very moist, very dense spice cake, dark as gingerbread, with a flavor that is impossible to describe to someone who has not tasted a wild persimmon. The Persimmon Festival in Mitchell, Indiana has been held every September since 1947. It draws over 50,000 visitors. There is a persimmon pudding contest. There is a persimmon pudding queen. The winning recipes are published. Mitchell, Indiana, population 4,000, becomes one of the most visited towns in the state for one weekend every fall. Outside of southern Indiana and a few other pockets of the American South, persimmon pudding is essentially unknown. Indiana has been making it for 2 centuries and has never needed anyone else to discover it. A fruit that punishes you for trying it too early. A pudding that requires patience, frost, and a specific hillside in southern Indiana to exist at all. That is Indiana food. It does not hurry. It does not explain itself. It just waits for the right moment. And then it is exactly right. Indiana doesn't shout about its food. It never has. The sugar cream pie predates the state and was named after hard times. The breaded pork tenderloin extends 6 inches past the bun and considers that the correct ratio. The persimmon pudding requires a fruit that cannot be eaten until the frost arrives, made by people who have been waiting for that frost for 2 centuries. Orville Redenbacher developed 30,000 hybrid varieties before he found the one he was looking for. He sold it at a premium because he knew it was right. Indiana grows a quarter of the country's popcorn from the same flat, fertile fields that have always been there. Indiana does things its own way. Now, we know Indiana has more food stories than 10 episodes can cover. The Amish communities of northern Indiana alone could fill a series. Drop in the comments what we missed. Which Indiana food should have been on this list? If you're from Indiana, did we get it right? We read every single one, and this series gets better because of you. We're learning right alongside you. That's what this is for. Stay curious.